Yo, this your boy CEO Hockley. Real quick, man, today's episode is being sponsored by OGHollywoodspeaks.com. Yes, that's right. OGHollywoodspeaks.com has this fly gear, man. Savage Drive, man. He has this very fly gear, man. He's a former prisoner that changed his life, did 25 years after receiving a life sentence, got home, and he been home 10 years, man. He's been out, he's been free 10 years. He has his own clothing line called Savage Drive. It represents the kind of drive you need to have to make it to the top, the kind of drive you need to have to stay free, right? And as we talk about this prison topic, I want to highlight and show and give respects to those that have been to prison and that are doing the right things in today's society. Everybody go to OGHollywoodspeaks.com and get that Savage Drive. If you got the drive it takes to be successful, man, support him. Also, you can follow him on YouTube. You can follow him on all social medias at OGHollywoodspeaks.com. We appreciate the support here at CEO Talk, and we also like to support other black people doing something positive, man. Savage Drive, that is the clothing line. Get yours today. Salute.
Salute, man. Salute. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button and that subscribe button. You know why? Because it's free. It's so free, it don't make no sense. Anyway, man, I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. And for those that don't rock with me, I appreciate that too. You know why? Figure that out yourself. But anyway, today, man, what I want to do is I want to talk about VP Kamala Harris. And the reason why I want to give my input on that is because somebody asked me a question. They asked a question, and they answered the question, right? But we are all different. And that's what makes us special, because we have our own difference of opinion. However, some people just jump on the fast train with no explanation, right? In other words, what I'm saying is this. Some say they're voting for Trump because he brings money to America, right? And the majority of the black community say, well, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Because why? If she wins the election, she'll be the first black female president to ever graze the grounds of the White House, right? And then some say, I'm not voting for her because she sent many black men to prison and she wants the black vote. That would make sense to some people, right? Especially to people like me that have been to prison and have served a substantial amount of time, right? However, I understand that it's bigger than that. What I mean by that is this. If you hold any kind of position, whether it be a person that's in lawn care, and you get a contract and they bring you out to cut the grass, you are getting paid to cut the grass, right? It's no different as if you are a doctor. When that individual is sick, he or she goes to the hospital. Why? With the hopes of being treated. So being a district attorney is no different than any one of those jobs. I repeat, being a district attorney is no different than any one of those jobs. And the reason why I say that is because as a district attorney, your job is to prosecute whoever comes in the courtroom. That district attorney cannot find you guilty one way or another. If you go to trial by jury, that jury can only find you guilty, right? If you go in front of a judge, that judge will have to find you guilty. All the district attorney do is present the case with the hopes of doing a good job. Just as well as she prosecuted a lot of people, there was a lot of people that didn't get prosecuted, right? Does that make her a bad person? No. That makes her a person that was sworn in to do a job, whether it was done well or wasn't done well. That doesn't make this individual a bad person, right? Because I've seen many DAs that are not of color send people to prison. Many, many people to prison. But there's nothing behind that. Why? Because people are already accustomed to the white man or the white women as DAs sending people to prison. They're already used to that. So that makes it all good. That makes it all good in the Black community eyes, right? And the reason why is because you are numb to that. You're numb to being a Black man and getting prosecuted by a white individual in the courts. So it doesn't bother you when you get screwed by a white person because you're used to that, right? Well, I'll tell you this. The only reason people are saying I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because she used to be a DA, right? Always remember this, man. Whatever occupation that you are applying for and that you get, you have to do your job. You have to do your job. Now, whether you do a good job or a bad job is up to you, right? But I will say this. To somebody that was locked up a substantial amount of time, which is me, I was sentenced by a Black judge that sentenced me to life in prison. I was highly upset because you know why? I can't believe a Black man would do this to me. He's supposed to understand why I'm breaking these laws or why am I committing these crimes. As a Black person, he's supposed to understand, right? Well, that's a criminal mind of thinking. A rational mind person will say, you know what? It doesn't matter if this person is Black or white. If you put yourself in a position to get sentenced, you're going to get sentenced. You're going to get sentenced, right? And that was the conversation I had today with an individual, and that was their excuse of not voting for this particular person, right? And me in my position, I'm not able to vote, but that doesn't change the fact that Kamala Harris had a job to do. And when you put yourself in a position as a criminal, you're going to get prosecuted, man. You're going to get prosecuted, right? And we all know in the 2024 election, man, you got two people that's going to be president. So one is going to win and one is going to lose. It's up to you to vote for whoever you're going to vote for. But I will say this. I listened to a clip. And this clip is from 2000. It might go over their head. But for those who have been incarcerated and understand that it's very important for these tools to be in place when the individual comes back to society. It's very important, man. And this was in 2006. She was saying this, right? That's the reason why I said this. Understand what you're getting into before you get into it. Because anybody that's doing crime, whether you're right or whether you're wrong, you will be tried. You will be tried. So don't let that individual that's doing the job be held accountable before your actions. Those are your actions. When you come in front of these people, these are your actions. But I will say this, man, that listening to this speech and understanding what she was saying, how she was saying it, and she was speaking to the Black and brown people, because it is so true. Once a person is let out of prison, if there's no structure in place, he or she will return. He or she will return. And yet, have I heard any politician speak in a way that she spoke on this subject. I have not heard a politician speak like this on this particular subject, man. And notice what I put in front of the speech. Notice the picture I put in front of the speech, because why? She is speaking directly to the black man. So for those that listen to this, man, it's just a sound bite. It's just a sound bite. But this was my answer to that person when he said that I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because she used to be a DA. And this was my answer to him, that if I could vote, unfortunately I can't, because I'm a convicted felon. And it's a reason why they keep convicted felons away from the poll. Because they know one thing, if they allow convicted felons to vote, that in which who we vote for will supersede and shoot straight to the office. It was designed to keep the black and the brown people from voting. That's why prison is so overpopulated. That's why. So, like I said, this was my answer to that person when they said, this is why I'm not voting for Kamala Harris, because she used to be a district attorney and she sent many black men to prison. What about all the Caucasians that sent many black men to prison? But once again, like I said, you can overlook that because you feel like this is what they're supposed to do. They are white people and they automatically are against black people. In your subconscious mind and in your normal mind, you've accepted that. So that's okay. But anyway, man, I just thought I'd give my spiel on why people should understand that when people got a job to do, regardless of race, creed, or color, 9 out of 10, they're going to do it, man. And whether they do it right or whether they do it wrong, it's solely up to that person. But we all have our opinion on why we do things. But this was my answer to that particular person. And I hope he's watching. So let's hear this sound bite and notice who she's talking to.
On this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us, because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't want is excessive force.
That's right.
What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped. But we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to keep my promise to you to keep you safe, I better talk with you about what I'm doing in terms of crime prevention, which means recognizing that people coming out of the state prisons, 60% will recidivate if we don't get them in reentry programs, if we don't get them in job training, job readiness, get them in programs that deal with their substance abuse, get them in meaningful housing and employment so they don't recidivate. We could talk about it in terms of, is it the right thing to do? Of course it is. But I'm done talking about it like that. I'll just talk about it on this basis. If that person commits another crime, I have to spend $10,000 to try that felony. They sit in my county jail for $35,000 a year. I'm running a reentry program out of my office in San Francisco DA's office that brings folks back into the community at an expense of $8,000 a year, guarantees them employment, guarantees them meaningful reunification with their family. Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us. Because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't want is excessive force.
That's right.
What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped. But we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to keep my promise to you to keep you safe, I better talk with you about what I'm doing in terms of crime prevention, which means recognizing that people coming out of the state prisons, 60% will recidivate if we don't get them in reentry programs, if we don't get them in job training, job readiness, get them in programs that deal with their substance abuse, get them in meaningful housing and employment so they don't recidivate. We could talk about it in terms of, is it the right thing to do? Of course it is. But, you know, I'm done talking about it.
I played that clip twice so people could understand that you are in control of your life. You in control of your life. No DA, no judge, no lawyer, none of that is in control of your life. But this was my answer to that person that says, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because she used to be a DA. I let that soundbite speak for me. DA or not, she get it. And the vast majority of people that go to prison is black and brown. Look at your average street corner and you'll see who's homeless. The majority of people that are homeless have been incarcerated with no help. So you do the math. You do the math. For those that can vote, you vote for who you want to vote for. But you got two choices. You got Kamala Harris or you got Donald J. Trump. I won't get into that because the choice is yours. But this is my answer to that person that said she used to be a DA. Until next time, man, y'all remember hit that like button and that subscribe button. And remember, whatever you do in life, the choice is yours, man. Salute.